whoever you are, whoever you love, and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote 7 principles, which we hold as strong values and moral guides. The first, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. The second, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. The third, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. The fourth, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. The fifth, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. The sixth, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. And the seventh, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
Good morning, and welcome to Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome here. If you are new to SMUUCh and want to know more about our church, please fill out our Get in Touch form using the link in our video description. For all of you joining us live this morning, feel free to start posting your joys and sorrows now if you would like the names to be read during the candle lighting. And now, a few messages from our minister.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Rose, the minister of SMUUCh. It's a joy to see you and an honor to be broadcast into your homes. Just a few announcements this morning. First, please join us next week for our annual youth service. Because our high school seniors did not get the graduation, we will have a virtual Zoom webinar after the service next week in celebration of them, and you are invited. Secondly, if you are a person of color, you are invited to join our drum group, which is the Diverse Religious UU Multicultural Ministries. Please email our Director of Religious Education, Patrice Gonzalez, whose email is on our website for more information. And lastly, if you are interested in getting more involved with our church or learning about Unitarian Universalism, please join our Just the Basics class. Please fill out the Get in Touch form for more information. Together, we are better. Together, we are a courageous church. Together, we are a courageous country, a courageous world. Come, let us worship. Please join us for our opening hymn, number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are.
Yet again come.
Please join me as we light our chalice and affirm that love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another. At this, the start of Pride Month, we seek to connect not only people and authenticity, but connect the narratives of battling for equality and justice. Dr. Martin Luther King said, "A riot is the language of the unheard."
The Stonewall riots were a watershed moment in the gay rights movement, sparking activism and awareness across the United States. Homosexuality was still considered sodomy and illegal in 49 states. The punishments varied greatly by state, ranging from heavy fines to imprisonment. In society, members of the gay community were often subject to violence, harassment, and discrimination. In New York City, gay bars were havens for people with diverse sexual orientations and gender identities, places where they could avoid harassment and violence. The Stonewall Inn served as a popular refuge. The Stonewall Inn was owned by the Mafia. The Mafia bribed the police to look the other way. In turn, the Mafia made money overcharging patrons for drinks. Even so, the patrons were not fully safe from homophobia and discrimination. The Mafia would extort wealthy patrons, threatening to out them to their employers and families. Despite the Mafia's bribes, the police still regularly raided the Stonewall Inn and other gay bars, charging them with solicitation of homosexual relations. Trans and other gender nonconforming people were also targeted, subjected to violence, and arrested if they weren't wearing what the police deemed gender-appropriate clothing. 9 police officers entered the Stonewall Inn in a raid. The patrons were fed up. As the police roughly tried to arrest bartenders and customers, many resisted. Outside the bar, people in the hundreds began rioting. They threw bottles at the police and pushed through the barricades. The police officers retreated from the crowd and locked themselves inside the Stonewall Inn. Rioters responded by setting the bar on fire. Police reinforcement arrived, and the original officers managed to get out of the burning bar. Meanwhile, the angry mob had grown into thousands. Eventually, the police were able to get the crowd to disperse, but it didn't last long. The riots continued until July 1st. While some criticized the violent and destructive riots, others pointed to the brutality and unjust treatment of the gay community. This large-scale defiance made a massive impact on society. The Stonewall riots were the beginning of the modern gay liberation movement, which also brought attention to others marginalized for their sexual or gender orientation. The riots sparked the formation of the Gay Liberation Front, the first group to publicly advocate for equal gay rights. On the 1-year anniversary of the riots, they also organized the first Gay Pride Parade. Today, Pride events are still held on the anniversary of the Stonewall riots in cities around the country and even the world. In 2016, President Obama made the Stonewall Inn and the area outside where the riots broke out a national monument. This became the first national monument celebrating gay history. The Stonewall riots may have been violent, but they marked a pivotal moment in history. No longer would people quietly endure the stigma associated with their sexual and gender orientations. Through the Stonewall riots, the gay rights movement gained mainstream visibility and a momentum that continues to this day.
This is the time where we expand the caring love of our community. Let us draw into our hearts all who are struggling mightily with the weight of the current events. Those of us who are grieving, who are awakening to the depth of wounds that the media and society have failed to acknowledge for too long. So let us just take a moment to feel, to let the heart bloom and open and feel the suffering. For grief is an important part of our spiritual lives. And thus, I read these words in hopes that the world will crack open with sadness, clarity, and lamentation. Let us draw to heart and mind those in our midst who have known the weight of this grief for some time. For there are those who live in daily fear, whose human rights are violated habitually. Let us think of those who have suffered for being Black, for the families of those who have died for being Black, for the dead. Let us draw to heart and mind the gay community, for those who have suffered for being trans, those who are closeted or disowned. And let us draw to mind the border crossers, the detained, the disappeared, and the separated. Let us just take a moment to breathe and feel, realizing that this is very, very real. And I invite you to send a well wish or thought or a prayer to someone who you know is suffering, someone who you might not know personally. And now I invite you to set for yourself a silent intention. Just breathing deeply and knowing that your commitment to the world, to yourself, to a person of color, to a gay person, to this church matters. It doesn't have to be attainable right now, just heartfelt. Just note in your mind that intention, and we'll come back to it later. Please comment in the comment section of our live chat your joy or sorrow. Remember, this moment of sharing happens online and remains public for all of our viewers joining us today. And to join us further together in the beloved community, we will read out loud the names of those who posted joys and sorrows while I light the candles.
Jenny is thinking of Adrian Law, who is in the hospital with a stroke, and also thinking of Julie Ann, who is not allowed to visit him and is having a hard time getting information. Diane, for her brother Bobby, who is undergoing chemo and will have a bone marrow transplant next week. Greg, a joy that Ada, David and Jamie's older daughter, has published a book of her poetry on her congratulations to her vital young voice. Georgia, whose heart hurts for George Floyd's death and his grieving friends and family, as well as all those others who have been at the mercy of others who don't accept the diversity of this beautiful world. From a joy that their mom's cancer has gone into remission, no tumors. We light the remaining candles for all the joys and sorrows that remain unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts.
Let us become mindful again. I invite you to breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Put your feet flat on the floor. Just to offer yourself this moment of gentleness and kindness. In this world of great systemic pain, great personal pain. You can close your eyes, just letting the air flow in and out. Letting that breath go down to your toes, your fingertips, deep into your belly. Dr. King said that self-esteem is the first step to freedom. That even for the enslaved, love for the self and pride in the self is the first step. As we are now in Gay Pride Month, let us take this moment of prayer to send ourselves a little love. To even put a hand over our heart and say aloud the words or think them, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. Because you are amazing. You are kind, and you've made it through so much. You've got a long way to go, but me too. And if you're of the LGBTQ community, today I'll send a special message to you. Your creativity, your beauty, your playfulness is needed by this world. You are so beautiful as you are in all your mixing and your matching. You were made in the image of the divine, and you deserve all the love in the world. And for you, we will sing our meditative hymn.
Tell you were anything less than beautiful. How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul.
Our reading today comes from Dr. King's address to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference just 8 months before he died. As we listen to his words, I invite us to reflect on the sense of purpose, love, and power that has long come from the Black community. Power, properly understood, is nothing but the ability to achieve purpose. And one of the great problems of history is that the concepts of love and power have usually been contrasted as opposite, polar opposites, so that love is identified with a resignation of power, and that power with a denial of love. Now, we've got to get this right. What we need is a realization of that power without love is reckless and abusive, and that love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love. It is precisely this collision of immoral power with powerless morality which constitutes the major crisis of our times. I am now pleased to bring you a video conversation between Reverend Rose and Reverend Karen Hutt, a queer leader in the Black community of Minneapolis and a UU minister of 25 years. Reverend Hutt also preached at our minister's ordination. Reverend Rose says that she owes a great deal of her ministerial soul to Reverend Karen.
Who are you?
My name is Karen Hutt. I am a minister. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister, and I have been been one for 25 years now. And I work at First Universalist Minneapolis, very part-time. But my primary work is as Vice President of Student Formation and Vocation and Innovation, full title, at United Theological Seminary in St. Paul.
I'm wondering if you could tell us how you found Unitarian Universalism and what drew you in.
My father died really suddenly in 1977 when I was 19 years old, and
whet their
I
appetites.
think I roamed into and wandered into a church one day. I had not been churched in years. I had been raised a Jehovah's Witness and had left that a long, long time ago. But it was also Gay Pride. It was my father died on Gay Pride Sunday, 1977. These
Jimmy,
folks
okay?
who had such nice words to say about gay people and nice words to say about humanity made me feel very welcome and warm. And then I saw all the other groups that met there. They all were people with issues that I was, aligned with. So that was sort of my first encounter with Unitarian. It was very casual, but on a really poignant moment in my life. Well, I came out in 1972. I came out in Philadelphia. I was 14 years old. There were no bookstores. There were no gay community centers, no youth programs. There's just like the street, some books, and rumors about who in your neighborhood is gay. We went to the library because that's where we came out. So I came out in the library in that I go to the card catalog, which we had back then, finger yourselves through, and the letter H was always really messy. So when you got
I have a Bible here, and I'm going to use it today. For this book was used this week, and it was abused this week. It was held up as a prop in front of a church by the current president of the United States, after tear gassing people who were fighting for their rights. Now, I feel compelled, as I'm sure many preachers across many religions do today, to preach in defense of the Bible, because I think such an act of blasphemy deserves a little bit of setting the record straight. I can tell you that this is a book about liberation from empire. This is a book about human systems of corruption. It's a book about self-love for the underdog and solidarity with her from those of us who have leverage. This is a book about the depth of understanding that comes only when we realize that the suffering of the other is the suffering of ourselves. And this is a book of Black liberation. For I think that the sermon today calls for the words of the Right Reverend Dr. James Cone, beloved professor of mine and the father of Black liberation theology. This seminal theological work came from a little boy from Arkansas who, when asked about how he was so successful, cited his parents' love. Now, Dr. Cone was a man who could preach the same story over and over and over and make you love it over and over and over, because one of the hearts of Black preaching is the testimony of the preacher to speak what they know to be true. And what he preached was that the Bible shows a trend from Genesis to Revelations that clearly shows that God makes choices to love him as a Black man. That there is a nature of God, and that this nature is a gravitation towards those who suffer. That whenever someone is suffering, there circles a divine presence. But it's not just those who suffer personally. No, this God chooses to support and bring miracles to those who suffer because of the systems of their time. God is on the side of the oppressed, the exiled, the poor, the enslaved, the outcast, the widow, the sick, the foreigner. And this choice on the part of God is the heart of liberation theology. But this does not leave out those of us who are privileged, of course. It just calls us to join in the liberation of those who are oppressed. And in the process, we get to ride liberated on the coattails of our empowered brothers and sisters. A few examples of how this works. First is that the Stonewall riots and subsequent tipping of the gay rights movement occurred when? In 1969, 1 year after the premature death of Dr. King. The Black community's powerful work to liberate themselves from this horrific history had pried open that self-love in others as well. It had empowered others to stand up for their rights. Secondly, there is currently a yawning, an opening in the national community to admit and speak about issues of race which were taboo and would have been automatically shut down 2 weeks ago. We see again the powerful voice of the Black community allowed some of us to not only suddenly acknowledge so much, but it also allowed people to step forward in high places from which we all benefit. Now, it is not lost on me that the Black community is leading our nation towards health. The Black community is showing great bravery in the face of human rights issues. And it is not lost on me that the very people who are most at risk of being killed by the authorities are the ones who are putting their bodies in direct contact. And this is why Dr. Cohn's final work is called The Cross and the Lynching Tree. Because the Bible is a story about the whistleblower who organized in order to stand up against the empire that damaged so many people. And it was this whistleblower that died for all of our sins. The sins of greed, the sins of complacency, the sins of inaction, the sin of apathy. Dr. Cohn says that the cross and the lynching tree interpret each other. And now I'll tell you what I know to be true. I know that the liberation of Black people is the liberation of us all. That there is a great humility in following the lead of people of color, and a great satisfaction in putting together pieces of the puzzle that is just incomplete when locked in whiteness. That there is something truly sacred about the bravery and action that oppressed communities are taking, and that we are indebted to them for sparking the shifts that have needed to happen. Now, I manage this gratitude personally by making special attempts to be in Black-led spaces where I am welcome. I've done this over the past few weeks, masked and hand washing. I go because, A, it's good practice in listening, AKA keeping my mouth shut, and B, because I want to be there if this community needs anything, because I want change so badly. I need it, and so do you. Now, at a recent event, a young man told me that if there was something that we resolved to do, that we had 7 days to do it. I was like, okay. Now, remember that commitment you made earlier? You now have 7 days to do something about it. Because majority white communities like ours must not just sit back and continue to enjoy the fruits of the hard labor of the Black community as this entire nation is accustomed to do. But instead, we must take up the work of support to advocate for voices of color and for budgets to be reworked to offer real support to communities of color and to require accountability from authorities. Because don't forget, even if in Christian theology Jesus died for our sins, we still have to account for them at the pearly gates. So let us remember that, like the Governor Waltz of Minnesota said, this door isn't going to stay open long, meaning let's strike while the iron is hot in making positive change. Let us take a cue from the rapidness of change that has just occurred and remember that we are much more powerful as individuals than we think we are, and that as a group, we are unstoppable. There may be a million doors that open to us, a million closet doors even, but it's up to us to walk through them. So what are you going to do in the next 7 days? Blessed be, and amen.
The work of the church depends on us, our generosity of time, wisdom, and financial resources. We invite you to give generously to support the ongoing work of the church. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared values.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please join us in the closing hymn, 170, We Are a Gentle, Angry People.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
This week, I invite you to enact your change in the ways that you are able, using your self-love and your love of others as your fuel. If you would like to see the full video of Reverend Karen Hutt, which I recommend, we invite you to stay after the postlude. Go in peace.
Who are you?
My name is Karen Hutt. I am a minister. I'm a Unitarian Universalist minister, and I have been so, been one for 25 years now. And I work at First Universalist Minneapolis, very part-time, but my primary work is as Vice President of Student Formation and Vocation and Innovation, cool title, at United Theological Seminary in St. Paul.
And I'm wondering if you could tell us how you found Unitarian Universalism and what drew you in.
My father died really suddenly in 1977 when I was 19 years old, and I think I roamed into and wandered into a church one day. I had not been churched in years. I had been raised a Jehovah's Witness and had left that a long, long time ago. But it was also Gay Pride. It was my father died on Gay Pride Sunday, 1977. These folks who had such nice words to say about gay people and nice words to say about humanity made me feel very welcome and warm. And then I saw all the other groups that met there. They all were people with issues that I was, aligned with. So that was sort of my first encounter with Unitarian. It was very casual, but on a really poignant moment in my life. Well, I came out in 1972. I came out in Philadelphia. I was 14 years old. There were no bookstores. There were no gay community centers, no youth programs. There's just like the street, some books, and rumors about who in your neighborhood is gay. We went to the library because that's where we came out. So I came out in the library in that I go to the card catalog, which we had back then, finger yourselves through, and the letter H was always really messy. So when you got the HOMO, then you really were into some messy cards and books that have been really utilized. And so you go to those sections and you look for those books, but you never take them out. I never took them out because then they'd know that I was a homo. If I took out the book. So we always get an encyclopedia or a reference book to go with it and put it in front of us, and then we'd read whatever. So, it's a weird story, huh?
It's an awesome story. Do you remember anyone who was particularly inspiring to you in the way that they were out or the way that they expressed themselves?
All the drag queens on the street. I mean, I loved them so much. They were my heroes. I remember this one drag queen, Miss Lorraine. She lined us all up in the street, in the alley, and made us walk. They said, you walk, you walk. And after we walked, they would tell us whether we were butch or femme. And if we were butch, then we'd get like a gay daddy to teach us how to be a butch and a gay mommy, because we just said gay. So all of us had these gay parents based on how we walked from Miss Lorraine in the alley. And so they became my heroes because they were strong. They were so beautiful. Those were my heroes because they defied all the odds. They didn't give a shit. They fought back against the police, and they didn't let people mess with us kids. And the Unitarians, Universalists that I knew then were accepting and loving and kind and decent about our identity. And so that's what they gave me. They gave me acceptance. And as somebody who was a young kid without parents in the city, as a college student, there's a place to be with adults who accepted me. And that was really important. Because most adults up until that point were really judgmental and scary. They were non-scary adults for a young homosexual.